I'm here is to speak out of a great concern that we're now heading down a very dangerous road leading to the gutting of our military and settling for adequacy as opposed to supremacy. I first made my concerns known on a YouTube video that I did when I was in Afghanistan immediately following the announcement by the Obama administration. My concerns drew an interesting reaction from the left. Not only did they say I was wrong to say that there were proposed cuts into the budget, they actually said the Obama administration proposed to increase the budget. I must confess, it is a rare day when liberals actually claim to support increasing our nation's military. MSNBC was so outraged with my video that 3 of their primetime hosts took aim at my comments from Afghanistan that very same night. MSNBC host Ed Schultz featured my video as part of his regular feature Psycho Talk, called my concerns absolutely false and said I was joining Cheney and Giuliani and all this other stuff. Keith Olbermann said I should do the math, and his guest, a very unbiased Speaker Pelosi, said my criticism of the Obama defense budget was simply desperation and that he was going to be spending more on defense than in '09. Not to be left out, Rachel Maddow repeated the same talking points and said once again the budget was actually going to increase. Then she brought on a guest, Eugene Robinson, associate editor and columnist with the Washington Post, who actually went so far as to saying that I was making stuff up and lying. Not to be outdone, CNN's Rich Sanchez, saying that he was doing a fact check, called my words ridiculous, and brought on a liberal think tank policy wonk who Sanchez repeatedly referred to as a moderate to defend his claims. Now, that's interesting that all of the liberal journalists were jumping on me and assailing me, but not the moderate ones. And I would ask that at the conclusion of my remarks that you have this editorial from the Wall Street Journal, which essentially validates everything that I was saying. The problem is the left is focused on one number, one piece of military spending, when they need to look at the total defense budget, what DOD actually spends on its operations and how that money is used to maintain our military capabilities. In actuality, thanks to the Obama administration, overall defense spending has been cut by $10.7 billion in fiscal '09 and will be cut again in fiscal '10. Now you might say, well, fiscal '09 was the previous administration, but the second of the emergency supplements, second half, is where the cuts came in, and that was done by the Obama administration. We have reached a crossroads where we'll choose either to invest in modernization and readiness of our military or mistakenly kick the can on down the road, which we've been doing over and over again. Based on the projected defense budget for the next 10 years, it looks like this administration is taking us down a path that leads to a weaker military that is poorly equipped. 2 weeks ago, on April 6th, Secretary Gates announced a broad plan of cuts and adjustments for the fiscal year 10. His plan is intended to reshape, and this is his quote, reshape the priorities of America's defense establishment and profoundly reform how DOD does business. However, the effects of the programs and systems he intends to cut will severely affect the ongoing effort to rebuild and modernize our military. I was in Afghanistan at the time this decision was announced. Most of the liberal journalists responded. This plan comes at a time in our history when we've dramatically increased our domestic spending by trillions of dollars under the umbrella of emergency bailouts and stimulus packages. You stop and think about the $700 billion. Quite frankly, I think it was thrown away. It's supposedly going to be used to buy damaged assets, and it was used to bail out friendly banks. And by the way, I have to defend Paulson a little bit, because I found out later it was really Tim Geithner who was the architect behind all of this. Now, I'll elaborate on that if there's time later on. But if you really want to stimulate, there are 3 ways you can stimulate the economy that we should have found in the stimulant bill. One would be for military spending, defense spending, others infrastructure investment. Talk about highway construction, bridges, and other tax cuts. This isn't what we had. Sadly, this president is on track to grow the country's obligations to 22% of GDP, while he shrinks defense spending in relation to the GDP by 3% in 2019. Now, this chart shows that during the Clinton administration in the 90s, we took a holiday from procurement of new weapons and modernizing the ancient